Welcome back to Astrology of Combust. My name is Vil. Okay, I just wanted to do that. Hi, we're going to be going over Gemini rising and how the sun or moon can also be affected by Jupiter in Cancer. So Jupiter was recently in your guys' first house. And as it was sitting there in your first house, Jupiter was very much showing you guys about what it means to have more than what you thought was possible in your own self. And I think that this transit did wonders for you guys because, truthfully, Jupiter allowed you to expand and change, and it made room for the now upcoming Uranus transit. But we're obviously talking about Jupiter here, so let's go back a little bit more. What else happened? Well, Jupiter made you commit. Because Jupiter in Gemini gave you a lot of opportunities, but it squared the Saturn in Pisces while it was there. It made you commit. Commit to the idea of what you want for your future. It made you commit to what it is that you think you need to do. And, well, the learning's not done, but at least for now, you can have some fun. That's what I really think Uranus is going to also show you. However, clearly, we're talking about Jupiter in Cancer. So with that brief understanding of what Jupiter did in the past, let's talk about Jupiter in Cancer. You are someone that is going to now be looking to grow the bag. Jupiter in Cancer is a really nice placement to have in the second house. Like, really, really, really nice. Getting what you want has never been easier, but also defining what it is that you want is going to be what's under audit here. As, you know, we started off the season of Jupiter with like June 26th, I believe, with the stellium. And then we had the full moon in Capricorn. One of the biggest things that you should have experienced during that time was finding your way home, finding your way towards what makes you happy at night. Because you guys and relationships aren't exactly the easiest thing. I've always learned about Gemini risings and kind of saw that they have a really hard time dating. And I always, it was so interesting because before I really sat down and looked at the rest of the location of the houses, I would just look at the risings and I'm like, Gemini risings are bad daters. Like, I wouldn't date them. I have heard horrible experiences. But then, as I actually took the time to step outside of my own bubble and learn about others that doesn't have a perspective with me attached to it, it allowed me to have more of an understanding, because I've had, I think it's sympathy, but maybe not as much empathy, and sitting to learn how the other signs sit in a chart with the rising let me understand. And that's why I'll say stuff like Cancer is the smartest, Aquarius is the coolest, because of the other houses, not just the rising here. Anyway, yapping along. Why is Gemini having such a hard time with the relationships? Well, Pluto's been in their 8th for quite a bit of time. And while Pluto was in Capricorn from 08 till basically 24, you come across someone at a period of their life where they're constantly getting tested. Money is constantly getting removed from them. They are constantly having to deal with issues of power, when all they really want is stability. They really want to feel safe, but they can't even have that because Uranus is here, and it's forcing them to be like, hey, you can't just have things always be perfect like that. Their friendships always have to be a competition. And when it comes to fun, it might be something that ends up being a solo practice if they lose the battle of where they rank in the power scales, how their family ties affect them. And also with Virgo being where they've come from, their own family needs perfection. So then that adds to the desire to be stable, which starts this whole cycle of 4, 8, and 12. And then Saturn, having recently been here, was like, you need to commit to what you want to do, because honestly, being a mutable rising means you might not know. So how this gets back to the dating aspect is that the 8th house has had a rough time with Pluto. And giving you that context, the Pluto itself now moving into the 9th house, sounds like I'm kind of saying the same thing over again, is teaching them a new way of honoring themselves, right? Because they honor themselves as much enough to be within the group dynamic, but not more so to allow them to be whatever they want, right? So if you need to be the highest in the hierarchy, are you really free? Because you're still in the system. But the whole point of Jupiter giving way to Uranus was to actually be out of the system itself. And the irony of Jupiter in Cancer squaring the 11th house and the 8th house and the 5th here is that your own values need to get healed, not what's going to get you there, not the perfect partner that's going to stabilize you and whatever. And I also think that from my personal experience, this is why I've always had a rough time with Gemini risings, because they really look for the security more so than the actual person. And this isn't to project my own experience, but even while reading for them, I see that they speak about that a lot. And I understand. I really do. They need the stability. But they don't really need people. They enjoy people, but they don't really need people. And I think that's something that some of them subconsciously don't fully accept, and some of them consciously do accept. And that can lean in and out of like levels of a superiority or whatever. But 3, 12, and 6 in their chart really ask them to be honest with themselves now, with Pluto sitting here. So when we come back to Jupiter once again, Jupiter opposing that 8th, it really is trying to heal this, trying to heal that desire for the capitalism, for the power dynamics, the power game, doing all that. They're not bad people. They're not people that don't care. It's not anything like horrible like that, but it's very much like, hey, if you just keep doing things for the perception and not actually enjoying the relationship, not actually enjoying the time that you're having fun, not actually enjoying being with people and not comparing yourself to them, then you never really get to have any bit of self-peace, right? I think that the exceptions to a lot of this are Gemini rising people that actually have a lot of Taurus, believe it or not. It kind of like offsets it when I've seen it and read it in the charts. All right. But then even then it could be like a game of, like, if it's a woman, they could be like a femme fatale. If it's a male, they could be a narcissist, like sociopath. Like it's so interesting. But I really think that just comes back to the fact that it's Gemini rising. Like it changes constantly. And the 7th house being Sagittarius is taking in a whole lot of new people for experiences. Okay. So giving you that context, as Jupiter is going to square Saturn and Neptune, your desire here should be to make friendships that will allow you to have a long-term peace. Because before we get into your 12th house of peace, we need to make sure the war has been won. But this time, Jupiter is asking you to not even pick up your weapon. Just don't even start the war. Just put yourself down. Let go. It's not really your fight. Jupiter will also allow the relationships to heal, where you might find someone that you wouldn't really usually go for. Maybe they don't give you as much stability, right? People that have Saturn in the 8th house is equivalent to me to being a Gemini rising, because relationships, they go for long term, but unfortunately long term disappoints. And so with that, the long term is usually tied to what they can actually do. And if you're not looking at what they can do for you and what you can enjoy with them in parallel, maybe you can find a better stable grounding for all this. And then last but not least, actually enjoying your own activities. Don't post. Don't make it something that, people have to see. And this goes back to me saying Taurus, but it's really Venusians, right? If you're a Gemini rising with more Venusian placement, then you're exempt from a lot of the stuff I said. But try to actually enjoy what you do. You don't have to necessarily share it, but whatever it is that you're doing, make sure it actually fills you up. So hopefully you guys enjoyed. This transit really does a lot for you. And for a lot of you guys, I've already seen that happening as is, right? Okay. Thank you so much for watching. My name's Liv, and take care.